Before we get started, leave a like right now. Subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell because that helps the content reach more fans and ensures you don't miss any important updates about European football, especially everything involving the Premier League, Manchester City, Arsenal, and the behind-the-scenes details that almost no one explains the right way. The mood in England has completely changed over the last few weeks. What looked like a controlled title race with a firm and confident leader has suddenly turned into an open, tense scenario full of possibilities. Manchester City's expectation of becoming champions again has grown very clearly, and that didn't happen by chance. It happened because Arsenal started slipping at exactly the moment they couldn't afford to. Arsenal are still top of the Premier League table on 50 points, and that is a fact. But the context behind that number is what really stands out. The lead that once looked comfortable has been reduced match after match to the point where today the gap to Manchester City is only 4 points. 4 points in a long, competitive league with decisive head-to-head clashes still to come means practically nothing. The problem for Arsenal isn't just the maths of the table, but the recent run of results. In their last 3 matches, the Gunners haven't managed to win. There were 2 frustrating draws, in games where the team did control things at times but failed to kill the match off, and a painful defeat to Manchester United. A defeat that hurts not only because of the points dropped, but because of the emotional and psychological impact this kind of result usually causes in a title race. When a team is leading, every slip becomes fuel for the direct rival, and that's exactly what happened. Manchester City haven't had a perfect spell over those same 3 rounds either. The citizens wobbled, took only 4 points, with a draw, a defeat, and a win. It wasn't a brilliant run, it wasn't dominant, but it was enough to keep City alive in the race, and more importantly, to watch the leader fail to pull away. That combination is dangerous. When the team behind doesn't fully hit top gear, but the team in front fails to take advantage, the league enters a maximum alert state. And inside the Manchester City squad, this is already being felt as a real opportunity. Bernardo Silva, one of the technical and emotional pillars of the team, was very honest when speaking about the squad's moment. He acknowledged that City still haven't reached the level of consistency they usually have in decisive phases of the season, but at the same time he made it clear that Arsenal had chances to open up a bigger lead and didn't. That detail, for a squad used to winning titles on the margins, changes everything. Bernardo's comment carries enormous symbolic weight. He reminded everyone that, since he's been in England, he's seen Liverpool win 2 titles and Manchester City themselves lift the trophy 6 times. Arsenal, in that same period, haven't managed to secure a single Premier League title. It's not provocation, it's recent history. And in a battle that is as mental as it is technical, history matters. Arsenal carry a scar that's hard to ignore. Over the last 3 seasons, the club has led the Premier League at some point, built expectation among fans, fed the dream, but always finished second. 3 consecutive runners-up finishes leave marks. They create internal doubts, external pressure, and a constant feeling that something can go wrong near the run-in. It's exactly at this point that Manchester City usually grow. It's not a team that panics because of mid-season fluctuations. It's a squad shaped for decisions, for long finishes, for calculated surges. When Bernardo says Arsenal could have pulled away and didn't, he's saying, indirectly, that the door is still open. The cold reality of the table shows Arsenal still have the advantage, but the emotional reality of the league tells a different story. There are still many matches ahead, head-to-head clashes, weeks of a tight calendar, and key decisions across multiple competitions. And Manchester City, even without being at their peak, remain alive, confident, and ambitious. That ambition doesn't show up only in speeches. It's reflected in the squad's posture, in the way experienced players approach this part of the season. Bernardo Silva, for example, is living through a phase many interpret as special, almost like a farewell. After the win against Galatasaray in the European competition, his performance was widely praised, even without goals or assists. He was intense, involved, tactically intelligent for the full 90 minutes. The kind of match that doesn't show up much in the stats, but jumps out to anyone who understands the game. After the match, when questioned, Bernardo made a statement that drew a lot of attention. He said he is really enjoying the season, that he tries to give his maximum for the club that gave him the opportunity to grow, win titles, and establish himself in English football. He also said he will fight until the end for the club and the fans. Simple words, but in the context of a contract ending at the end of the season, they sound like a clear sign that he wants to end this cycle by giving everything. That attitude directly influences the dressing room. When a technical leader positions himself like that, the squad feels it. The message is clear. Regardless of the future, the focus now is total on Manchester City's objectives, and those objectives inevitably involve the direct fight against Arsenal for the Premier League title. At the same time, City are also celebrating an important piece of news outside the domestic league. The win over Galatasaray secured direct qualification to the round of 16 of the European competition without needing to play the playoff. Finishing the group phase among the top 8 with 16 points was a huge relief for the season's planning. Bernardo Silva made that very clear when commenting on the achievement. He highlighted how important it was to avoid 2 extra matches in an already extremely tight calendar. Manchester City are dealing with several injuries in the squad, and every free week is worth gold. Having 2 full weeks to train, recover players, and fine-tune details could make all the difference precisely in the most decisive phase of the year. He also emphasized something that defines Pep Guardiola's City very well: the ability to adapt strategies depending on the opponent. The team doesn't always play the same way, doesn't repeat patterns automatically. There is study, adjustment, game reading, and against Galatasaray, according to him, City managed to execute that very well. This balance between physical management, tactical adaptation, and experience in big decisions is what keeps Manchester City as a real threat to Arsenal, even while the table still has the Gunners in the lead. And while the team fights on the pitch, off it, the behind-the-scenes are also moving. Offers, interest, and refusals show how City manage their squad in a delicate moment of the season. This high-pressure scenario on the pitch connects directly with what's happening behind the scenes at Manchester City. While the team tries to maintain total focus on chasing Arsenal and on the decisive stretch of the European competitions, the board and coaching staff are dealing with a complicated puzzle: injuries, market interest, and strategic decisions that can't be postponed. One of the most sensitive points right now is the defensive sector. Manchester City are facing a real crisis in that area. Key players like Ruben Dias, Joško Gvardiol, and John Stones are out injured, which drastically limits Pep Guardiola's options. In a team that builds so much from a high-quality build-up and defensive solidity, those absences weigh more than they seem at first glance. That is exactly why Nathan Ake's name has become central within the squad. The Dutch defender, who can also play at left-back, has become an almost indispensable piece at this point in the season, not only because of his versatility, but because of the reliability he offers in big matches, when the level of demand rises and any mistake can cost points or elimination. Not by chance, when Milan's interest in signing him this January window emerged, Manchester City's response was direct and firm: no. The Italian club is looking to strengthen its defense and sees Ake as an ideal profile: experienced, proven, and still at a high competitive level. However, from City's point of view, letting a defender go in this context would be taking a huge risk. Pep Guardiola, according to reports, was clear in saying he still needs the player a lot. With so many defenders injured, losing one more option would seriously compromise the team's balance. That's why, even with inquiries and attempts, City kept their position of not negotiating. That doesn't mean, however, that the matter is completely closed. There is an important detail in this story: Nathan Ake's personal desire. The player is aware of his role in the squad, but he also looks at the internal competition when everyone is healthy. The possibility of getting more minutes, being a protagonist, and taking on an even bigger role in another project sparks interest. Milan know that, and, for that reason, remain attentive. The Rossoneri directors understand the window is close to shutting, but still believe a last-minute opening could appear, whether through a reassessment by City or an unexpected move in the market. The Italian hope is to turn this negotiation into a golden opportunity. This kind of situation shows how Manchester City are living through a moment of delicate decisions. On one side, the immediate need to keep the squad strong to fight for titles. On the other, players thinking about their own futures, contracts approaching the end and long-term projects being put on the table. Bernardo Silva is the most emblematic example of that. His contract ends at the end of the season, and although he avoids direct statements about leaving or staying, his words carry a tone of a cycle coming to an end. He talks about enjoying it, giving everything until the end, giving back to the club. There are no promises beyond that. That posture creates a curious environment. There isn't a mood of a melancholic goodbye, but rather of a mission, as if the goal is to close this chapter with one more great achievement. For a player who has already won practically everything in a City shirt, lifting one more Premier League would carry enormous symbolic weight. And that connects again with the pressure on Arsenal. Every match week that passes without a convincing Gunners win feeds this narrative. City watch, calculate, wait for the right moment to accelerate. It's no coincidence that this team often grows precisely when others start to doubt themselves. Outside England, another behind-the-scenes move draws attention and connects indirectly with Manchester City. The talks involving Mateo Kovacic and Milan have gained strength, especially because of the influence of a name highly respected in European football, Luka Modric. Modric, who knows Kovacic as well as anyone, is said to have spoken directly with him about Milan's project and the club's long-term ambition. The idea would be to attract an experienced player with a background at big clubs and international competitions to bring more creativity and depth to the Italian side's midfield. Kovacic, currently at Manchester City, is seen as an almost natural fit for that project. His ability to carry the ball, break lines, and offer control in big matches appeals greatly to the coaching staff, led by Massimiliano Allegri. In a squad that could undergo significant changes in midfield, the arrival of a player with that profile would make sporting and strategic sense. However, Milan are acting with caution. Kovacic's recent injury record raises a warning signal. Before any official proposal, the club intends to carry out a detailed medical assessment. Nobody wants to repeat past mistakes, signing a top-level player who can't maintain physical regularity. This caution becomes even greater because there are clear signs of changes in that area. The possible departures of Ruben Loftus-Cheek and Youssouf Fofana reinforce the idea that a new name will arrive to take on a leading role. Within that context, Kovacic emerges as a logical option, but one that requires planning. For Manchester City, this external interest in their players is one more layer of complexity. Even if nothing is decided now, these conversations circulate, reach the ears of the squad, and become part of the environment. Managing that without losing focus is one of the biggest challenges for a team that fights for everything until the end of the season. In the middle of all this, the main thread remains the same, the race for the Premier League title. Arsenal still lead, but feel the pressure growing with every match week without a win. Manchester City, even far from perfection, see gaps, opportunities, and signs that the league is far from decided. Recent history shows that a lead in the table guarantees nothing when the emotional weight steps onto the pitch. Experience, a deep squad, and calmness in decisive moments tend to make the difference. And in that, City have a clear advantage. The next matches will say a lot about how this season ends. If Arsenal manage to react, regain confidence, and turn leadership into consistency, they could finally break the cycle of frustrations. But if the instability continues, Manchester City will be ready to do what they've done so many times, overtake at the right moment. If this content helped you understand better what's happening behind the scenes and on the pitch, leave a like right now, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell. That strengthens the work and ensures you keep receiving complete analysis without cuts and without superficiality.